Whenever I get into any accounting software and I think in terms of the revenue cycle, I like to start thinking generically rather than looking at the software itself at first. Because if I think from that standpoint, then I can begin to understand what it should look like in the accounting software. So what does this mean? I'm talking about the basic process. How does a sale come in the door? Either I'm going to invoice somebody for it, or they're going to be right there on site with me, such that the sale is made and the money is collected and then deposited. That's the basic revenue cycle at the core. Doesn't matter what I'm selling, whether it's a product or a service, something is getting sold, somebody is paying me for it. Now I can begin to think in terms of what the software needs to do in order to be able to capture that, right? So when we're looking at Sage 1 and we're looking at the revenue cycle and how that's handled, we're going to take a look and see, how does Sage 1 provide me with the ability to invoice a customer? How am I able to collect a payment and get it applied to that invoice? And ultimately, how am I able to reflect the fact that that money has now and eventually been deposited into the bank account? Let's go ahead and see what this looks like. So we're going to take a look at how to record revenues and how to handle the whole revenue cycle in Sage 1 Accountant. Before we even get there, I'd mentioned at the tail end of the last lesson that I'm not going to make you watch me fill out forms, but obviously when we start thinking in terms of recording income, we need to know how to set up a customer. So in the setup area, notice in the summary, there's tabs across the top. There's getting started, then sales expenses, cash flow statement, cash flow forecast. I love that they have this here. That's so cool because that's kind of the first thing I always want to see when I'm first getting into the company file of my own or my clients. I want to see what's cash flow looking like. How are we doing there? Are we running out of money or do we have plenty, right? So we're going to create or import customers. So we click there and it takes us into the customers area. It takes us right over to that part of the contacts area. And I've gone ahead and set up my other company here, Nerd Enterprises, Inc., as a customer. And again, I'm not going to make you watch me fill out forms, but I do want to show you kind of what's under the hood here. The basic information's here, of course, the contact type, the business name. I love that they have a reference here because I can put this down based on who referred me this customer, right? I use in other accounting software, I just use kind of custom fields, or I kind of just, I find a place that's not really meant for this. But I have other ways of indicating who referred me that customer, but how nice that they've included the space for that right here. I always want to know who sent me a customer because if I run a sales by customer summary, let's say at the end of the year, that kind of report, because I want to see who are my biggest, customers. I want to make sure I'm thanking them at the end of the year for their business because those are the customers that pay the bills. Then I also like to see who referred me those customers because I certainly want to thank those people for referring me my best customer. The truth is we should thank everyone, but that's another story for another video. Now, of course, I notice here it has bank details. Now, I haven't gotten this deep yet, but I'm guessing if I can include this information, it's because I can use it to get paid. Pretty nice, right? Of course, you can make notes here about the customer. And then down over here, I've got the activity, which will show me, of course, the high-level information. Notice it shows me overdue balance, oldest invoice. And going down here, this is where we'll start to see the actual transactions, the actual invoices and sales receipts and those sorts of things. But I also want to direct your attention over here to addresses. Since revenue is the first thing we're looking at in this course, I figure it's appropriate here to highlight one of the things that I really found I love about the Sage 1 product, which is the interface. I think and frankly hope that you'll agree with me when I say that I think the interface is gorgeous. I think the layout is great. I think it makes it really easy to figure out on your own exactly where you need to go to do whatever it is that you need to do. And while we're at it, I think that the form that you get to fill out, so to speak, because that's what we're looking at here at the end of the day. It's software that runs in your browser, and essentially we're filling out forms. Of course, I always want to stress the importance of understanding as a bookkeeping or accounting professional that you really should be thinking in terms of and understanding what's going on behind that form when you fill it out and click to save it. And I think you'll find that the form that we're given to fill out an invoice, for example, in Sage 1 is a perfect example of just what a beautiful interface it is and how easy it makes it and how clear it is as far as what you have to do to get it filled out, to capture the information that you need to capture, and then move on, of course, and collect the payment and record the deposit. Because this is where you can include contacts, not just contacts, but multiple contacts. So, of course, here is the main company information, right? Then over here is the contact. Now, of course, I am the main contact, right? I am the chief nerd. Ooh, let's fix that typo. We need nerd capitalized for sure. The email in this case should probably be Seth at Nerd Enterprises. right? And so you can, and notice I've checked this off. That says main contact, which gives it this nice little amber colored tag here. And then I can add more contacts, more address contacts. So, and I can add more addresses if I have multiple locations, right? So I've added my wife here. And of course, that's her job title. She's the wife. She's the real boss. And that's my story. So there's, again, beautiful layout, really easy to follow, really easy to understand what to do, where to do it, how to do it. So we've got our first customer set up. Now let's go record a sale. And notice in the sales menu, I have several options. I can do invoices, I can do credit notes, I can do a quick entry, and I can do quotes. I can do an estimate. So that's pretty straightforward. Let's go right into a sales invoice. And we're going to create a new invoice. And I only have one customer so far, so we'll choose them. Right? This always bugs me about the main address. I always want to put something like, Nerd Enterprises, Inc., care of Seth David, right? Of course, I can put a reference or a PO number. So let's say this is invoice 001. And the product or service. Oh, we need a product or service. So again, I can create it from here. So let's go create it from here. Now it's either a product or a service, right? Pretty straightforward. So let's say it's a service because I'm in the accounting business. So I want to do bookkeeping, services, description, bookkeeping stuff. Right? Professional fees is fine for an account. The tax rate to take the default from the customer, or for this particular service, if I need to, I can do an overriding tax rate. Obviously, given that this is a service and I'm in the state of California, I'll take the default from the customer, but the truth is there's no tax. So we'll default it from the customer. Notes, I can put notes, of course, that'll come up on the description. So for bookkeeping stuff we did. Okay, and the rate, what do we charge, right? So maybe I charge $500 a month. And I love that there's this flexibility, right? Because oftentimes it's, we can't really specify the sort of nature of the rate. We just put a rate in and we assume that that's a rate per unit, but we don't have a way of defining what that unit actually is. So it could be hourly, right? $500 an hour would be pretty good. But, more and more these days, and especially I think because our friends at Sage, if you join the Facebook group Vera Sage and Friends, you'll find out that these guys are real strong proponents of value pricing, which means this is going to be hopefully much more likely what you're going to do. And that's also another course or another lesson. Rate includes tax. So let's say that you don't want to have to deal with separating out the taxes and all that. You'll just include the tax in what you charge and then pay it in. That option is provided for here. Also really nice. Makes it easy. So we'll save this. And so notice once I've kind of got one line going, it adds another line so that I can continue on. So this is for bookkeeping stuff, June 2015, right? So I'll add that in. Even though I associated the product or service with an account, so that's what comes up, I have the flexibility of changing that if I want to here, right? So I'm not stuck with that just because that's the item that I chose and that's the account I'd mapped it to. It's just kind of a default linkage, but it can be changed right here in the form, which is nice. And again, there's no text, so my total's 500. Over here, I can put comments. Thank you so much for your business. Right, terms and conditions. This is often stuff that I, have to sort of customize an invoice form in other software to do this, to make it appear here. But I can say, due on the first. Oops, I can't type. Late after the second. Come on, I'm funny. And that's pretty much it. I can save it as a draft in case I'm working on it and I want to go back later. I can save it, I can save and send, I can save and print, or save and new, right? All pretty straightforward. So let's just save it. And actually, let's go back in here and let's send it. Email, there it is. So notice it comes up here. Pay me now. Okay, and look at this, I can view a PDF of it. Which is pretty cool. And we're not going to get into customizing the invoice form, but we already saw in the last lesson where the place was that we could go to do that if we wanted to, right? And look how nice this looks. It's just very professional looking, very clean layout. I really like it.
Of course, if I didn't really like it, I wouldn't be doing this course. I can check off to send a copy to myself. In other accounting software, I have to work around that by just adding myself as a BCC and send, right? And then I'm going to check my own email in a minute and make sure I got that. Now, I can record a payment from here, right? Or as we already saw, I can go into my banking area and I can go new entry, sale or receipt. And I can say customer, Nerd Enterprises, Inc. And there's the invoice. So again, many ways to do this, right? I can add in a discount if I wanted to. And into bank account checking. And amount received 500. Everything ties. I can hit. So I could do save, add another. Or I could just do save. So let's just do save. And I've got my payment. Notice my balance says $150,500. How cool is that? So I got paid. I recorded an invoice. I got paid. So now you know what I'm going to do, right? Let's run a balance sheet. There's my balance sheet, $150,500. I meant to run this. I should have run this before I recorded the payment so you could see the accounts receivable on the balance sheet, but obviously that's there. We can record another sale if you don't believe that accounts receivable works. Here, let's duplicate my tab here, and then let's run a profit and loss. Right, so we've got income, we've got no expenses, pure profit, which takes us back to the balance sheet. If you go to the equity section, there's my trading activity, right? Which is kind of what we might have come to think of in other software as the net income closing entry that goes to the balance sheet or retained earnings, right? So that's where this goes. They call it trading activity. And that's what that is. It's the income closing out to the balance sheet. So, my friends, you have now seen the entire revenue cycle. Of course, if we wanted to issue a refund, we would do a sales credit note. Again, I can show you what the form looks like. And notice here, by the way, that, and this appears on every one of these lists, it's really easy now to see because I've got, very few transactions in here. But using the search and using your filter options is going to make it a lot easier to find things. So I just want to make sure it's clear that this stuff is here so that when you have hundreds of invoices in the history, it's still going to be very easy to find what you need to. So, new credit note. And again, it's going to be pretty straightforward. We can issue it to Nerd Enterprises, give it a reference number. It comes up with the information. That's really bugging me. I'm going to want to go back and fix that in the address permanently. And then, of course, you pick what we're refunding them for. It's already going against the professional fees. And here's a perfect use case where I love the fact that I have the potential to disconnect the product or service. Because let's say it's bookkeeping stuff, but it's a refund. I don't want it going to professional fees. I want it going to like sales returns and allowances, right? Sales, fees, discounts. So, or let's just add a new one. If it'll let me from here, it won't. So I'm going to want to go in and create a new account called sales returns and allowances as an income type account. Let's do that real quick. So you can see how that's done. We already kind of covered it in the last lesson, but we're going to do it again. We're going to go to we went to settings. We're going to go to chart of accounts. And we're going to say new ledger account, ledger name, sales, returns, and allowances. It's not a discount, right? We're not giving them a discount, because we love them for their business. We're actually returning the item, right? Display name, we'll do the same. Copy and paste that. Account number should be some kind of a 4000 series. It looks like that's what we've got here. We want it to be towards the bottom. Let's call it 4800. All right, the category, it's going to be sales. And I'm just scanning the list to make sure there's not something more specific and accordingly more appropriate, perhaps. Okay, and then I'm going to go with the defaults on the visibility here. It looks like that's all about right. Alrighty then. So now we can do the credit note. New Nerd It's for bookkeeping services, but now we want it going to sales returns and allowances. All right, and let's say we're giving them back half their money. They say, hey, your bookkeeping was terrible this month, right? So we say, all right, listen, we'll give you 50% off because you think we did a bad job. And then we'll save it. And let's go run the profit and loss. We'll refresh. Look at that. Isn't that gorgeous? I just love this stuff. So I've got my $500 sale. I got my $250 refund, netting my total revenues of $250. To run the balance sheet, make sure the equity section looks right. Yep, there it is. There's my net income of $250 now because I reduced it. So there it is, my friends. It's pretty easy and clear to handle the whole sales cycle using Sage 1 accounting. As always, if you have any questions, please visit our answers forum at schoolofbookkeeping.com, right here where you're likely watching this. If you're not a student, become one so that you can access the answers forum and ask your questions for any clarification you might need on anything you've seen here before or anything you see in the future. As always, I hope you had fun and learned something along the way. I hope you're having an absolutely fantastic day, and I look forward to seeing you in the next lesson.
Now that we know how to record revenue and see that all the way through to the point where we capture the deposit and we've actually gotten the money, we can start spending some of that money. So we're going to head into the next lesson on this and look at how to capture the entire expense cycle in Sage 1 Accountant.